Philip, we talked a lot about the budget. I keep calling it the budget. Spring statement. We're going to have another budget in the autumn.
It was a budget.
It's a budget. Other than the fact there weren't tax rises, as our economist said, it could have been a lot worse. What do you think the impact of this is going to be in terms of all the measures that she actually announced in terms of some welfare cuts, but welfare spending still going up? No tax rises, but with those tax rises she last announced, they're coming in next week. More money on defence, tackling a bit of tax evasion, government efficiency and the like. We hear that from every government. Every government said they're going to tackle that. They never seem to do so. At the end of the day, we're still going to be seeing, it's not austerity, it's still going to be more money, more taxes being taken and more government spending. It's just going to go up at a slightly lower rate than it did before.
The worst thing of this is because there's nothing really decisive in it, it will just increase people's mistrust of government economic policy. And we get mistrust in government economic policy, people are then going to be more reluctant to invest and to grow their businesses and everything else, even if they could find a way around all these increased rules, regulations and employment
and there are
taxes. More
regulations in the footing, in the planning, aren't there? The employment rights.
Exactly.
And things like that.
And therefore what's going to happen is the economy is just going to stall, if not start to go into reverse. And she's setting the conditions for that. This isn't what Donald Trump's doing. This isn't what the Tories are doing.
She says this is world events. It's world events. I know there was a world event only a few hours after she spoke yesterday in the Commons chamber when Donald Trump announced his car tariffs.
Whenever she was in opposition, COVID, which I think probably was a bit of a world event. She didn't think that the Tories could use that as an excuse.
Yes.
So
it is a bit interesting, isn't it? And this is the thing. I mean, whenever I've always tackled Labour on this, when they've said, the government finances in a terrible state. Yeah, largely because of lockdown and because of the Ukraine war. That's what really has hit us in our pocket. Both of those things were COVID was out of our control, the Ukraine war was out of our control, but we were harder hit because of the policy choices we've made previously, things like net zero policy, affecting our ability to sort of deal with the Ukraine war and the impact on energy prices, but also the decisions for lockdown. But given that Labour supported all the lockdown measures, wanted more of them and for longer, we would have had a lockdown in December 21 if Keir Starmer had been Prime Minister. And given that they completely supported the help for Ukraine and wanted there to be bailouts for people on their energy bills, I don't know why they can say that they wouldn't have happened under Labour. It would have been worse under Labour.
And what they've done is they've accelerated a lot of the green projects, a lot of the projects that aren't going to add value in the short term.
They're going to take value.
It's going to take value away from us. What they should have done was said, if they wanted to keep the political status, say we still believe in these, but we're going to implement them whenever the fiscal rules are right and park them.
Which is kind of where Kemi Badenoch is. And again, that's still not good enough for me. I prefer the Reform UK line on this, which is like, we're going to drop net zero. The targets are insane. They were plucked from thin air. They're utterly meaningless. They're not going to do anything for climate change. They're actually, they're going to make the country poorer, end of. She hasn't quite got there yet. Robert Jenrick came close to it in the leadership battles, but she's not there yet. And that's a deal breaker. I've always said there are certain things. Do you understand the biological difference between men and women? Can you basically add up? And if you can basically add up, you cannot be in favour. I love that he was just counting on his fingers then. I wish Rachel Reeves would count on her fingers. Well, someone was joking on the phone yesterday about her. There's this woman with an abacus that, she's Rachel Reeves. I wish she did have an abacus. She'd have a better understanding of maths what's going on. I was just trying if she did.
Yeah, I was just doing tick box on what our Prime Minister. I was going, it doesn't add up to anything.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's why I'm really clear. I mean, I don't tell people which party I vote for, because actually I do vote for. I voted for lots of different parties over the year, but I'm very clear on the policy. I vote on the policies. I want to know what you're actually going to do. But this is the thing. Rachel Reeves is getting it from all sides. I mean, the Tories are having a go, Reform are having a go, particularly Nigel Farage pointing out quite rightly, even when they talk about GDP is going to grow by 1%. No, well, GDP per capita. I mean, they've halved the GDP predicting from 2% to 1%, but GDP per capita, as in how much richer we are per person on average in this country, that ain't going up. That ain't going up because we've got more people in the country and they're going to build a load of houses. Turns out they're not going to build as many houses on the expectation is, and I've always said they're not going to build 1.5 million houses. Of course they're not. But if they're going to try, that's something. But I'm in favour of the planning reforms and all of that. But fundamentally, even if they do build all those houses, if you are, and the OBR predicts they're going to have an extra 300,000 people net coming into the country, well, that's all those houses used up anyway.
Well, exactly. Well, Andrew Rayner turned around and said 5 out of 7 of the new houses are going for the illegal asylum seekers that are coming in. But it's the stifling of growth, and it's stifling of growth by policy. And I'm not as black and white as you. I would be quite happy if the government parks something to say when the fiscal rules allow, because you and I both know that when a government does that, it means we're never going to get round to it.
No, but I need them to accept that it's an insane policy.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, then you wouldn't just park it. You'd go, we've got to drop this policy because the numbers don't add up. Bye-bye. Thanks, Ed Miliband. Go back. Go and make yourself a cup of tea in one of your two kitchens.
Yeah, the trouble is the reality, especially for Labour and all the rest of it, is that proportions of their voters, or those that would switch to Greens or anything else, what they're doing is playing to them.
Talking of net zero things, I've just been handed, I have in my hand a piece of paper. I've just been handed a piece of paper. This is a statement from Just Stop Oil. The headline is, Just Stop Oil is hanging up the high vis. This is very interesting. So this is a statement from them. Yes, 3 years after bursting on the scene in a blaze of orange, at the end of April, we will be hanging up the high vis. They've got a final Just Stop Oil action in Parliament Square on April the 26th. They say their initial demand to end new oil and gas in digging and mining is now government policy. Insanely, they'll drop that. Labour will drop that. I know
of course they will drop it.
Making us, they say, one of the most successful civil resistance campaigns in recent history. They say we've kept over 4.4 billion barrels of oil in the ground, and the courts have ruled new oil and gas licences unlawful. By the way, that's why your prices are going up. They said it's the end of soup on Van Goghs, cornstarch on Stonehenge and slow marching in the street. They said it's not the end of trials, of tagging and surveillance, of fines, probation and years in prison. Well, you know, if you feel so strongly about that, you're willing to take the hit. We have exposed the corruption at the heart of our legal system, which protects those causing death and destruction. I mean, it's just a load of nonsense, this, isn't it? Just Stop Oil will continue to tell the truth in the courts. No, you won't. No. Speak out for our political prisoners. They're not political prisoners. They're criminals who broke the law. And call out the UK's oppressive anti-protest laws. They're not oppressive. You've been protesting. The problem with the protest laws was they didn't enforce them, and you were allowed to stop people going about their lawful business for a long time. They said it's not the end of civil resistance. Governments everywhere are retreating from doing what is needed to protect us from the consequences of unchecked fossil fuel burning. As we head towards 2% of global heating by the 2030s, the science is clear. Billions of people, I love this, I love it when they go, they always feel the need, don't they, to go too far. Billions of people will have to move or die, and the global economy is going to collapse. This, says Just Stop Oil, is unavoidable. We've been betrayed by a morally bankrupt political class. I mean, it just carries on. I mean, God, those long winter nights must be tiring, mustn't they? Anyway, they're going to stop doing their protests. I think they're going to stop doing their protests because everyone hates them, and actually they're not getting public support, and they have undermined their case. And I think also because British people, and I always loved those guys on the tube. Do you remember Canning Town? There was Just Stop Oil or equivalent, or of the same type. I'm pretty sure they were Just Stop Oil. And they were on the roof of a this was years back now, about 5-6 years ago. They were on the roof of a tube train at Canning Town at 7:15 in the morning on a Monday or something. I remember covering it live on the show.
Driven off.
Well,
sorry, big boys rules.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. That's right. And people, can you imagine? You're in Canning Town in East London. You're on the tube platform at 7:15 in the morning, and some idiot does that, and these blokes just started pulling them off. They just pulled them off the train, and I don't approve of this, obviously. They got a bit of a kicking because thought they did, and then basically get the trains back running. And I think the thing is that they've been doing all their protests in places like Westminster and Waterloo Bridge or whatever. You can get away with it there, not in the East End of London. They're not putting up with it. And I think really, basically, the rest of the British people went, "We're done now."
Well, you know what that statement says to me, reading between the lines, is someone from the police or the security service has gone to several key individuals in Just Stop Oil and shown them a number. And that number is how many years they're going to spend behind bars, and then showing them the draft of the asset freezing orders that have gone into their country piles and everything else where they came from, and said that's what's going to happen.
The Jacintas and the Tristans are upset that actually been called to account.
So best you stop it. So they've gone, oh, we need to stop this.
Absolutely. Well, bye-bye, Just Stop Oil. It was so much fun while it lasted. They follow me on social media and are constantly messaging me, and it's like, do carry on. By the way, I understand there has been some sort of protest where Emma Reynolds, one of a cabinet minister, where apologies, I thought I said Emma, Jonathan Reynolds. There's been some sort of protest with, I believe, Jonathan Reynolds, the business secretary, speaking. So we'll try and find out what's been going on there. Right, let's go back to another topic. Let's go back to what's going on with the White House. This is your area of expertise, is it not? Where Trump officials have attacked this journalist from the Atlantic magazine over this signal leak. This is this chat, sort of equivalent like a WhatsApp chat, encrypted messaging service involving the Defence Secretary Peter Hegseth, I'm never going to be able to pronounce that man's name. The Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, National Security Advisors, and of course the J.D. Vance, the Vice President. And we learned a lot about their loathing for the European freeloading and various other remarks and things. But the key thing was there was a discussion about 2 hours in advance of an attack on Houthi rebels. Now we're constantly told by Hegseth, this wasn't a war plan. It wasn't a military plan. There was nothing classified. It's no big deal. The journalist involved, I thought, had been incredibly patriotic, not revealing the full details until after the event, quite a long time after the event, and kept back what he believed was classified information. But interestingly, they said it wasn't classified, so he's released it all, and now he's being attacked for that. Yeah.
The arrogance of the group of people that were on that signal. And we say it's encrypted. It's encrypted to you and I if we want to try and break it. Governments want to get in. No, it's not. Anything on there is compromised. And from to say it wasn't classified, yes, he'd ripped the classifications off the top. That's a classical thing for whenever you're doing that. It's an old intelligence officer's way of hiding classification. Take classification off and no one notices. When you read the level of detail that's in there, it gave you the type of aircraft. The F-18s come off the USS Nimitz. You can find on open source where the USS Nimitz is. It gave the time that they were taking off. It gave the time that they were going to be on target. That would allow the Houthis to get, and they've got quite sophisticated anti-aircraft missile systems, those put in position. The director of the CIA turned around and talked about an agent that they got on the ground. He turned around and said...
Which that information was redacted.
Well, you could read it quite easily. He turned around and said, we observed an individual going into his girlfriend's house, and the house, so that said that they'd got imagery over the place, which would either be from drones or from satellites. They compromised the intelligence gathering mechanisms.
As someone involved in military intelligence, that was your job. You would know that was information you wouldn't put on WhatsApp or Signal.
Well, 100%.
Would you be sacked if you did?
Yes, immediately. There'd be you'd be shown the door. You would not, your clearances would be revoked immediately. That information was, as a minimum, secret, but I've read US guidelines. It should have been top secret and would probably have been classified and
that conversation should only take place in what circumstance then?
It should only take place in a place that's called a SCIF, which is a special secure intelligence facility.
In person? You couldn't do that over any electronic device?
You could do it over electronic devices. The individuals at that level...
But not involving a mobile phone?
The individuals at that level have got special mobile devices that they can use to chat those sorts of things on, that are secure, that are...
But they're government-owned.
They're government-owned, they're government-controlled,
not your iPhone, which can be... Because the key thing, these are encrypted messages, and ideally, only the people sending the message or receiving the message can actually see it, unless, of course, it's a journalist who's been included.
Or unless your device is compromised.
But your device can be compromised very, very easily.
Yes, very easily.
Which is why...
And you won't know that it's been compromised.
Which is why even, the Defence Secretary was being interviewed earlier this week, Healy, and he was saying, often he spends large amounts of time in meetings where he's not allowed to have his phone anywhere, in the building. Exactly. So they've accepted even the Defence Secretary's phone could be compromised. We know Liz Truss's phone was compromised. That was taken off.
Liz Truss's, Boris Johnson's, Keir Starmer's, a lot of them are. You can turn your phone, even if someone switched it off. You can turn the microphone and the camera on live, and the individual won't know that that's happening, and you don't know where it's transmitting to. That's why in really secure facilities, personal mobile phones, including smartwatches and all this, are just not allowed.
I hate my husband's smartwatch. We have conversations on a walk, and then an advert will come up for something. I'm like, there are three of us in this marriage. You, me, and that bird on Apple Watch.
I've stopped wearing one because it was listening into far too much, and I thought I just can't have this.
I think it's really, really sinister. I really do.
It is.
So fundamentally, but they're also, Peter Hegseth just saying, everyone just and Donald Trump rubbishing the editor. The editor of the this is Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor-in-chief of Atlantic magazine. He's like sort of the editor of The Guardian, being included in this chat. He's not a fan of them. He thinks, he despises Trump and everything he stands for. But, this is a real chat. I mean, they've admitted this was real. He's a journalist. He published it. He did it very responsibly. And they're attacking him. What amazes me, though, again, we're in this ridiculous situation where you've got the Trump derangement syndrome is on the other side now.
Yeah.
It is the people who just say, no, if they say there wasn't a problem, there's not a problem. There is nothing that anyone in Trump's administration that could ever be done that was wrong. Reality check. This was a dumb thing to have done on all of their parts. One of them should have gone, this isn't a good idea, guys. Yeah. Peter Higgs says, I mean, absolutely mad to have done this. He was the one who released all that information. Yes. But to then attack the journalist for exposing it, and you're playing the man, not the ball at that point. I think it's embarrassing.
Oh, completely embarrassing. They've lost complete credibility and shown a level of arrogance that is scary. I'm the boss, therefore
I can do whatever I do.
Whatever,
but that's along with Donald Trump, which is. But if
yeah.
I say something's declassified, these documents he had in Mar-a-Lago, then they are declassified. But even when he said, even if I think it, then that happens. But, I mean, that's little emperor syndrome.
Again, if you look at all the individuals that are in there, they're not professionals in their area. They're political appointees. Even the director of the CIA.
Hexeth worked in the military.
No, he was a reserve officer in the Marines.
Wouldn't he still know?
No. Okay. Yes, he would know, but he's not worked at high level. He's been rocketed from being, a grunt to being at the very top. He's got an ego that comes with it and gone, I'm in charge of everything. Look at me. Those generals that were giving me orders beforehand, I can give them. In fact, I've sacked them. He's got an arrogance around him.
Okay, all right. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, and of course on what we're talking about in terms of the Rachel Reeves balancing the books on the backs of the poor. It's what the Labour side are claiming. Many of them, I mean, her own side, others pointing out that she's not ruling out more tax rises on working people. What's your reaction? Give us a call 0344 499 1000. Just to keep you up to date though, before we go to a break, the Business and Trade Secretary, this is Jonathan Reynolds. He has been interrupted by protesters, pro-Palestinian protesters. Yawn. Calling for an end to the sale of F-35 jet parts to Israel. I mean, because God forbid one of our allies shouldn't be able to defend themselves. Mm-hmm. The F-35s are massacring Palestinian children. They've not stopped the trade of F-35s. This man and his government are complicit in genocide, they said. Again, really do you think a lot of protesters need to get a hold of a dictionary and look up words and know what they actually mean? Mm-hmm. It's not genocide. The only genocide that's attempting to be committed is by Hamas on the Jewish people in Israel. Mm. Anyway, that's your little fact situation up to date. 11:23 is the time.